Now, this time next week, we will be digesting the results of Ireland's latest World Cup qualifier, which takes place in Faro. They're going up against Portugal and their star-studded squad. But joining us on the line to look ahead to that game and to a little bit of other news involving somebody Portuguese is Tom Kundert, who is the Portugal correspondent for World Soccer Magazine. Tommy, very welcome to the show. Our initial intention was to merely preview this small matter of a World Cup qualifier, maybe the breaking of a world record in terms of goals scored in international football. But the man who is potentially breaking that world record, it looks like he's going to have a new club between now and kick-off in Faro in 6 days' time. Cristiano Ronaldo appears to be on his way out of Juventus.
Yeah, well, let's wait and see. Could happen, couldn't it? It's I'm always a little bit wary of, jumping the gun on these transfers. But it's certainly lots seems to be gathering, doesn't it? The rumours suggesting that will happen. And if he does end up at Manchester City, that will certainly make things interesting.
Yeah, absolutely it would. There appears to be a sense that Juventus will be quite happy to have him off the wage bill, that he might have come towards the end of their road, at least because they want to look at a more sustainable model in terms of wages and in terms of profiles of player, let's just say, put it that way. To head to Manchester City seems like an interesting move. Paris Saint-Germain have distanced themselves a little bit this evening from potentially making a move for Ronaldo, but you'd have to say they would be tempted given the lay of the land, and especially the Champions League draw that we've just had this evening as well, where both clubs have been pitted against one another.
Yeah, amazing, isn't it? I was just waiting for Milan to be put in that group as well. Just an absolutely incredible group. But it's everybody of course talking about PSG. I'm really interested to see how they do because, Messi, Mbappe and Neymar, obviously three of the most amazing players in the world. But, none of them really like to defend that much. And you can normally get away with one or two of those players on a team. I'd say two maximum. Three, it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. If Ronaldo went there again, I mean, in terms of team structure, it would be amazing to watch, but I'm not sure how they'd make that work. But of course, I suppose you can ask the same kind of questions at Manchester City if Ronaldo does go there, because we all know that Pep Guardiola's sides are all about, pressing and just high energy, basically all over the pitch, including the centre forwards or whoever's up top. And that doesn't really fit Ronaldo's game, does it, nowadays? So it's definitely going to be interesting to see. If he does end up at Manchester City, how Pep will kind of fit him into his team.
Does the transfer talk around somebody like Ronaldo, would that be the kind of thing that would affect him in terms of going into next week's fixture in Faro, or is he just this kind of, he's so driven that any kind of outward distraction, even if it is the upheaval of moving from Italy to England or Italy to France, that he can just put it out of his mind and play the next 90 minutes that's in front of him?
Yeah, no, I don't think it would affect him one iota. I think that's the secret of Ronaldo's success, really, his mentality. He just, it doesn't really matter what's going on. He's really somebody who's, naturally attracts controversy, isn't it? A lot of it, not even off his own making. And, anything that Ronaldo does is a little bit like royalty, isn't he? It just gets front page news splashed over the front page of the front page or the back pages or both sometimes. And he just doesn't, it doesn't really seem to affect his performances at all. Also, if he has a very bad match, which doesn't happen very often, but if he does, it just doesn't affect him at all. The next match, he can bang in a hat-trick. So I don't really think whatever happens between now and then, I don't think it will affect Ronaldo at all in terms of this, the next Portugal game.
Yeah, Tom, you're filling us with confidence here as regards what's going to await Ireland in Faro next week, because as you may or may not be aware, our results haven't been too hot over the last couple of years. And I guess when Euro 2020 ended, or at least Portugal's Euro 2020 ended, we saw Cristiano Ronaldo equaling Ali Dai's all-time World Cup or all-time international goal-scoring record, and everybody thought, oh no, fair enough, he's going to go and break it eventually. We then looked at the calendar and realised that Ireland was the next fixture and the next target for Cristiano Ronaldo, and we could well be a footnote in terms of a world record being set in Faro. What is the Portuguese view of Ireland heading into this fixture? We've gotten the usual platitudes today from Fernando Santos of their, you know, pretty workmanlike, and they like how to dig in, and they're almost like an English side. We're kind of used to that kind of stuff. Would Portugal be looking to brush Ireland aside in 6 days' time, or are they taking us a little bit more seriously?
Oh, definitely taking Ireland seriously. And I think if I kind of made you wary about that little intro about Ronaldo, I think you only had to look at Euros, you know, the recent European Championship to see that Portugal themselves aren't really in an ideal place at the moment. And they do tend to struggle against teams like Ireland with, you know, with all due respect, perhaps not the star names in their team, but teams who are, you know, basically quite physical, very hard-working. And I suppose you can say a bit more of that old traditional British style. I think that's the kind of style which does tend to disrupt Portuguese sides, or the Portuguese national side. And like I said, if you look at Portugal, you know, they've got this amazing array of talent. They've got players like, you know, Bruno Fernandes, Bernardo Silva, Ronaldo, of course. Unfortunately, Joao Felix is injured, but, you know, you've got Diogo Jota. It's just top players playing in top clubs, really, all around the world. But for Portugal, it really hasn't come together at all. Fernando Santos hasn't managed to find the right chemistry, hasn't been able to kind of harness that amazing talent, especially from the attacking point of view. So yeah, I wouldn't, you know, if I was Ireland coming into this match, you know, I'd certainly think that, you know, they've got a chance of disrupting Portugal, making things difficult for Portugal. And also, if Portugal don't start well, you know, I wouldn't, this is the first game with, it will be with Portugal playing in front of their own fans, of course, for a long time. And the Euro didn't really go down very well at all here. So I wouldn't be surprised seeing the crowd getting a bit restless and getting a bit edgy if Ireland can hold Portugal at bay for, you know, perhaps the first half or longer.
Yeah, I was just going to ask about Fernando Santos. It's an interesting one because obviously you buy a lot of credit when you win a European Championships, especially when you're an underdog as they were in 2016 in France. There was a sense going into this tournament in the summer that Portugal had one of the better squads at the Euros and that they could really do some damage. There was that wobble against Germany. I think a lot of people said, listen, it was an off night. And then we've seen, you put it into context of what's gone on this year so far. You add in that defeat to Belgium, which, you know, Portugal were very much, I think, the second best side. I think most people would agree to that. And they haven't pulled up any trees either in this World Cup qualifying campaign. I mean, yes, they're unbeaten so far, but it was just a 1-0 victory at home to Azerbaijan. As you mentioned, teams can make it difficult for them. Serbia held them to a 2-2 draw, which is the exact same result as we almost got over there. And then you Portugal, who took the lead against them. Now, we fell to a defeat to Portugal when they took the lead. But those are the kind of things that put pressure on a manager when you've got that array of talent and people are wondering why you aren't having Bruno Fernandes play the way he is for Manchester United versus how he could play for Portugal. Like, what has been the reaction to Santos? Is he kind of on borrowed time? Is there a willingness to let this play out as far as he's concerned? Or is it somewhere in between?
Yeah, I'd say it's somewhere in between because you're right. You know, Portugal have never ever won a major tournament, and of course won Euro 2016. Then they won the inaugural Nations League straight after. So that did get Fernando Santos an enormous amount of credit. You know, he's a national hero. I think even if he does lose his job in the next year or two, he will always be remembered as a hero just for what he achieved. But having said that, you know, you're absolutely right when you point out those talents. Everyone agreed here in Portugal that this squad going into this European Championship was far stronger than the Portugal squad, which actually won it, you know, in 2016. So expectations were really high. And really, in none of the matches, Portugal really hit top gear, you know, take away maybe the last 5 or 10 minutes against Hungary. And so, you know, even against Belgium, it's interesting there. That's the way you read the game against Belgium because I think I'd agree with that, although a lot of people here said it was Portugal's best performance. You know, they were attacking the whole time, but I think that's more to do with game context. You know, they went a goal down, so they really had no option but to pull forward. But even so, they didn't really create enough chances. There just seems to be a real lack of cohesiveness. And Fernando Santos is naturally a very conservative coach. He showed that throughout his career, even in club management, then at Greece, where I suppose you can say it's more understandable with, less talented players maybe, or not such an abundance of talented players to work with. But people just say his management style doesn't suit the talent which he has available. And so, yeah, it's getting louder and louder, I'd say, the cause for for the FBF to make a change. It's going to be, it is definitely going to be, that's one thing I was saying, if I was in the Irish camp, that's something you've got to try and play on, I think. Just try and keep Portugal at bay for the first 20 minutes or first half if possible. And I think they really could start getting nervous and, maybe a bit disorganised, and maybe Ireland can take advantage of that, because at the moment, Portugal have really been playing like a bunch of very talented individuals thrown together without much of a plan.
Yeah.
And, sometimes it works because, Bernardo Silva produces an amazing through ball, or Cristiano Ronaldo scores an amazing goal. But really, it hasn't really convinced many people more. I'd say Fernando Santos's supporters are getting less and less day by day.
This is going to sound like a perverse question, because clearly he's still one of the best players in the world, but would that Portugal team, and I mean like team with a capital T, would that be better without a Cristiano Ronaldo as the main focal point? And you could then have people like Ruben Neves who have a little bit more room to breathe. Bernardo Silva has a little bit more room to breathe and doesn't necessarily have to feed the beast as Ronaldo has been, and deservedly so, for the last 15 years. But essentially that era is ending, and it didn't work particularly well in the Euros. So there is a sense that they are going to have to move on and find another way of playing and find another way of scoring goals. Is it almost a sense that they would be a better team without him, and they would flow better without him?
Yeah, it's a question which is being asked in Portugal, I'd say increasingly, especially because on the few occasions that Ronaldo hasn't played, Portugal have actually tended to play better, as a team, or more cohesively. But of course, Ronaldo remains Ronaldo, the greatest Portuguese player of all time. And, just breaking records galore for his club side and for the national side as well. And he loves playing for Portugal, and he's the captain and the figurehead. So it really is going to be interesting and really quite a difficult conundrum, I think, for Fernando Santos, for the Portuguese setup, and even for Ronaldo himself. He doesn't really want to ruin his legacy. I think it'd be impossible to ruin his legacy, but maybe tarnish his legacy by, kind of becoming a hindrance to Portugal. I'd say we weren't at that stage yet, but he's 36 now, and that there will come a time when that inevitably happens, when Portugal, to be a stronger team from the start, should start without him. I think maybe, I'm not sure if Ronaldo is ready to do this at the moment, but I think perhaps in the future, one thing we could see is Ronaldo remaining in the Portugal team, but maybe not starting. Imagine Ronaldo coming on for the last 30 minutes against a tiring defence. I think that might work quite well. But saying all that, Ronaldo was top scorer in Italy last year, wasn't he? And so you can't really say his powers are that diminished at the moment. And basically, it's a bit of while Fernando Santos is the coach of Portugal, I think it's a bit of a non-question, because he's asked this time and time again, and he just always insists, Ronaldo first name on the team sheet. They've got a really good relationship, those two. And so I don't think that will happen unless, Ronaldo will not be anything but an automatic starter for the foreseeable future, at least.
Is the Portuguese expectation that they win this group?
Oh, yeah, I think so. I think they'll be very disappointed with anything other than winning this group. They had a bit of a setback against Serbia, of course, the last game. I don't know if you recall, Ronaldo scored a legitimate goal right at the death, but there was no VAR, and the ball had clearly crossed the line, but it was ruled out. And so, Portugal are very aggrieved at that. But just again, looking at the players, this is why I suppose Fernando Santos a little bit a victim of his own success, because Portugal have had so much success in the last 5 years internationally in their national team, and then since then, club players, a whole series of club players, have really gone on to shine at some of the biggest clubs in Europe, in the world. And so people kind of automatically feel that this success should be continued, or maybe, we should even expect more out of the Portugal side in terms of, how they've been playing. And so, anything other than top spot will definitely be seen as a big disappointment in this World Cup qualifying.
Yeah, we're used to Porto and Lisbon being the two big hubs, I guess, of football in Portugal. And that's borne out by the Champions League draw again today, when all three are dotted throughout the groups. But what is the Estadio Algarve like in terms of a venue and in terms of its supporters? Because the Algarve, as we know, is a different kettle of fish entirely in terms of its attitude and its outlook. What kind of place, what kind of stadium, what kind of atmosphere can the Irish players expect next week?
Yeah, it's a lovely stadium. It's a really nice stadium. I don't know what the situation is actually on travelling fans. I don't know if there will be any travelling fans.
There won't be any. But it's just in terms of what awaits in terms of the vociferousness of the supporters.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, it's a bit of a white elephant because it was built for Euro 2004, of course, that Portugal hosted. But it doesn't actually have a club side which plays there regularly. Occasionally, there's a few sides in the Algarve, like Faro, a smaller side called Lourenço, and a few other, and I think even Olhanense, another Algarve side, have occasionally used it. But it's not their home pitch, and so it's used really just for a few showpiece matches per season. There's usually the August or the September international is held there. Portugal play there. Also, the Super Cup has been held there. The season curtain raise has been held there a few times. It has actually hosted a few other international matches. I think Gibraltar were playing their home matches there for a while. But yeah, it's a nice stadium. It's really nice. Architecturally, it's quite a stunning stadium. Really, it's built in it's supposed to resemble the sails of a ship, and it's a little bit out of town, out of Faro. It's about 10 kilometres outside Faro, not exactly on the coast. So it's a little bit in the middle of nowhere. But and it's quite an open stadium. But of course, usually like I said, there's no home supporters there, so it's usually a bit of a festive occasion because, of course,
they're just delighted that everybody's in town, essentially.
Also it's because it's held in summer. A lot of people who are on holiday end up going to the stadium. You see quite a lot of families there and everything. So I wouldn't really say it's a hotbed of football,
right?
But yeah, it should be a nice atmosphere there.
Good stuff. And I'd imagine there will be one or two Irish holidaymakers who might well have found their way upon tickets before kick-off next Wednesday. Tom Kundert, thank you so much for joining us and giving us a preview of what we can look forward to in Faro next week. There you go, Tom Kundert, the Portugal correspondent for World Soccer.